Okay, team, listen up. Welcome to the briefing. Today, we are cracking the code on the ultimate political strategy, power sharing. Now, this isn't just some dusty textbook theory, no. This is the high-stakes, tactical game that decides if a nation is going to thrive or completely collapse. Right, let's dive in.
So, here it is, the core mission objective. You've got a country, right? It's filled with different ethnic groups, people speaking different languages, different religions. Tensions are sky high. You make one wrong move, and the whole system could just fail. So, what's the play? How do you actually keep things stable and unified? To figure that out, we've got two live case studies running in our combat simulator. In one corner, you're looking at the super intricate map of Belgium, a nation literally built on a complex ethnic mix. And in the other corner, Sri Lanka, an island nation with its own really deep divisions. Two democracies, but two totally different approaches to the exact same critical challenge.
So let's analyze the tapes. This isn't just history class, you guys. This is a live breakdown of two master strategies for governance. We're going to find out what works, what absolutely fails, and why the future of entire nations really hangs on getting this right.
And here are the two opposing philosophies right here. On one side, you have Sri Lanka's strategy of majoritarianism, which is basically where the majority group just imposes its will on everyone else. You know, it's a tempting move for leaders because it seems fast and it really fires up their base. But on the other side, you've got Belgium's strategy of accommodation, a model built completely on compromise and sharing power. Let's see how these two actually played out.
Okay, what's so fascinating here is the tactical sequence of moves. Sri Lanka gets its independence in 1948, and then they go all in on empowering the Sinhala majority. The 1956 Act, that was a huge move. It made Sinhala the only official language, which basically pushed the Tamil-speaking minority to the side. Then came policies giving preferential treatment in colleges and jobs. It was a super high-risk gambit, all designed to lock down power by appealing to the majority.
And the result of that gambit? Oh, it was a catastrophic failure. The whole thing backfired, creating this deep sense of alienation among the Sri Lankan Tamils. This didn't unify the country, it completely fractured it. And what followed was decades of conflict, political instability, and eventually the demand for a whole separate state, an independent Tamil Eelam.
This spiral led to the absolute worst-case scenario, civil war. This is the ultimate price a country pays for a failed power-sharing strategy. It's when the fighting inside a country gets so bad, it's literally a war against itself, a complete and total mission failure. But now, let's pivot to the complete opposite strategy. Belgium had its own messy situation, a Dutch-speaking majority in the country, but a French-speaking majority in its own capital city, Brussels. Instead of one group dominating, they chose accommodation. And what's so brilliant is how they built their system. They gave both Dutch and French speakers equal representation in the central government. And get this, even Brussels got its own separate government with equal say for both communities. It was a total masterpiece of political engineering.
And here you have it. This is the ultimate proof that their strategy worked. Belgium didn't just avoid a civil war, it became a symbol of stability. So much so that Brussels was chosen to be the headquarters for the entire European Union. And why? Because they prove to the world that you can turn your diversity into a massive strength through smart power sharing.
Okay, debrief time. We've seen the results of these two different strategies. Now we need to pull out the core doctrine. Why is accommodation, why is sharing power the strategically superior move for democratic survival?
Right, let's get into our mains analysis on this. This is the big question, isn't it? It sounds kind of weird that by giving power away, you actually become stronger. But the case studies prove it. So what's the logic underneath it all? What makes sharing power the ultimate move for national strength and stability?
Well, the reasoning really boils down to two key pillars. First, you've got the prudential reasons. That's the cold, hard, logical side of things. And then you have the moral reasons, which get to the very soul of what a democracy is supposed to be. Think of it as the head and the heart. You really need both to make a power-sharing system work.
Let's break down the prudential logic, the head part. Look, it's just a practical move. Sharing power cuts down on the friction between different groups, which is the best way to keep things stable and avoid the kind of violence we saw in Sri Lanka. But here's the key insight, and listen closely. The tyranny of the majority might look strong in the short term, but over the long haul, it destroys the entire nation. It brings ruin even to the majority itself. It's just a self-defeating strategy.
And now for the moral reasons. The heart. This goes way deeper than just practical stuff. See, power sharing is the very spirit of democracy. A real democratic government isn't just about the majority ruling over everyone, it's about sharing power with all the citizens who are affected by its decisions. People have a fundamental right to have a say, and that is what creates a legitimate government. One where people feel like they have a real stake in the system, turning them into partners, not just subjects.
All right, so we know why we should share power. Now let's talk about the how. Welcome to our prelims keyword blitz. We are about to unlock the entire arsenal of power-sharing tools that modern democracies use to keep things balanced and stable. Pay very close attention.
These are the 4 primary moves in the power-sharing playbook. We've got horizontal, vertical, social group, and political party power sharing. Think of each one as a distinct tool designed for a specific job in the grand strategy of democratic government.
First up, horizontal sharing. This is where power is spread out among different branches at the same level of government: the legislature that makes the laws, the executive that carries them out, and the judiciary that interprets them. This creates a system where each branch can keep the others in line. The key term here, and this is a huge prelims keyword, is checks and balances. It's what stops any one part of the government from getting way too powerful.
Next up, vertical sharing. Here, power is divided between different levels of government. So you have a national or central government, then state or regional governments, and then local governments. This allows policies to be tailored for different regions. And the critical prelims keyword you have to know for this system is federalism.
But the arsenal doesn't stop there. Power can also be shared among social groups. Think of the community governments we saw in Belgium, or India's system of reserved constituencies, which guarantees representation. And finally, power is shared through political competition itself, like in coalition governments, where different parties have to rule together, and through the influence of powerful pressure groups representing everyone from farmers to big business.
So now let's take this entire playbook and apply it to the most complex, most diverse, democratic arena on the entire planet. The final boss battle, India. A country that puts every single one of these principles to the ultimate test, every single day. And you know, right from the very beginning, India's constitution laid the groundwork for this. By calling India a union of states, it baked the principle of federalism, that vertical power sharing we just talked about, right into the nation's DNA. This was no accident. It was a deliberate, strategic choice to manage an incredible amount of diversity.
So, the real question becomes, how does all this big theory actually work in practice? On the front lines of India's society and politics, how are these power-sharing tools really being used to manage all these potential conflicts and build a single, unified nation?
And this right here shows the mission in action. The playbook is constantly being used. In the arena of gender, the fight for more women in government is a struggle for a greater share of political power. When you talk about religious diversity, democracy becomes the field where different communities negotiate their needs using political parties and pressure groups. And with the incredibly complex issue of caste, we see direct power-sharing tools like those reserved constituencies we mentioned being used to try and fix historical inequalities. See, the game is never over.
So, let's end on this final thought. Power sharing shows us that democracy is not some static trophy you win and put on a shelf. No, it's a dynamic, constant game of negotiation, of accommodation, and of balance. The real question is, after looking at the strategies we've analyzed today, is your nation playing that game with the skill and the foresight it takes to win? That's your debrief. Mission complete.